The graduation cap flew off my head as I sprinted across the university quad, my heels clicking frantically against the stone pathway. Behind me, Marco's men shouted commands, their heavy footsteps gaining ground. There she is. Don't let her reach the street. My lungs burned as I clutched my diploma, the one thing I'd earned that Marco could never take away. 3 years of night classes while hiding bruises under concealer, it all led to this moment of freedom that was already slipping through my fingers. I rounded the corner of the administration building and slammed directly into a wall of muscle. Strong hands gripped my shoulders, steadying me as I stumbled backward. Easy there, sweetheart. The voice was deep, controlled, with just a hint of an Italian accent. I looked up into the darkest eyes I'd ever seen, black as midnight and twice as dangerous. The man towering over me wore an expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than my tuition, his black hair slicked back perfectly despite the Chicago wind. Please, I gasped, glancing over my shoulder. They're coming. I need to. Adana. Marco's voice cut through the air like a blade. Get back here. You belong to me. The stranger's grip on my arms tightened imperceptibly. His dark eyes shifted past me to where Marco and his 3 bodyguards were approaching, then back to my face with calculating precision. You running from your husband? Ex-husband. I corrected quickly. Please just let me go. I don't want you involved in this. A slow, predatory smile curved his lips. Too late for that, beautiful. I should have turned around right then. But I didn't. And before I tell you why that decision changed everything, subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna, because some secrets are too dangerous to keep buried. The stranger spun me around so my back pressed against his chest, one arm wrapping possessively around my waist. His other hand tilted my chin up as Marco and his men skidded to a stop 10 feet away. Marco Torino, the stranger said, his voice carrying an authority that made everyone within hearing distance stop and stare. Still collecting women who don't want you, I see. Marco's face went pale beneath his olive complexion. Benedetti. This doesn't concern you. She's my wife. Ex-wife. I protested, but the stranger, Benedetti, silenced me with a gentle squeeze. Is that so? Benedetti's voice held dark amusement. Because from where I'm standing, she was running from you. She signed a contract. She owes me 3 more years of what? The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees as Benedetti spoke. Servitude? Abuse? Explain it to me, Marco, because I'm genuinely curious. Marco's jaw clenched. She's coming with me. No, Benedetti said softly, she's not. Before I could process what was happening, Benedetti's hand cupped the back of my neck and his mouth descended on mine. The kiss was claiming, possessive, designed to mark territory rather than express affection. His lips were firm and warm, moving against mine with practiced skill that made my knees weak despite every rational thought screaming at me to pull away. When he finally lifted his head, his dark eyes never left Marco's face. She's under Benedetti protection now, he announced, his voice carrying across the quad where dozens of students and faculty had stopped to stare. Anyone who touches her answers to me. My heart hammered against my ribs as I realized what had just happened. Every person watching knew that name, Benedetti. The Chicago crime family that controlled half the city's underground. And this man had just claimed me as his in front of witnesses. Marco's face cycled through several emotions, rage, fear, calculation. You can't just. I can and I have. Benedetti's arm around my waist was immovable. Unless you'd like to discuss it further? For a long moment, the 2 men stared at each other in a battle of wills that had nothing to do with me and everything to do with power. Finally, Marco jerked his head toward his men. This isn't over, he snarled. Yes, Benedetti said pleasantly. It is. As Marco and his bodyguards retreated, Benedetti guided me toward a sleek black sedan parked at the curb. The driver, a mountain of a man with scars across his knuckles, held the door open without a word. Get in, Benedetti said. I don't even know your name. Cairo Benedetti. He gestured toward the car. And you're about to learn why running from one cage into another isn't always an improvement. I hesitated, looking back at the quad where my graduation ceremony continued without me, then at the direction Marco had disappeared. 3 choices. Go back to Marco, run alone and be hunted down within hours, or get in the car with a man whose reputation was whispered about in every dark corner of Chicago. I got in the car. Cairo slid in beside me, his presence filling the confined space as the driver pulled into traffic. The leather seats were buttersoft, the interior immaculate. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. Comfortable? Cairo asked, settling back with feline grace. What just happened back there? I saved your life. You're welcome. By kissing me in front of half the university? His lips curved in that same predatory smile. By making you untouchable. In our world, when a made man publicly claims a woman, she becomes his wife under family law. Marco knows this. It's why he backed down. My blood turned to ice water. Your wife. In every way that matters to men like Marco, yes. Cairo's dark eyes studied my face with clinical interest. The kiss was witnessed. The claim was made. By our laws, you belong to me now. I don't belong to anyone, I snapped, panic rising in my throat. I just escaped one controlling marriage. I'm not entering another. Marriage implies choice, Cairo said calmly. This is protection. Marco will never touch you again because doing so would mean war with the Benedetti family. And trust me, sweetheart, that's not a war he's equipped to fight. The city blurred past the tinted windows as the reality of my situation sank in. I'd traded one prison for another, one captor for another. The only difference was that my new cage would be gilded. Where are you taking me? Home, Cairo said simply. I have an apartment. I have a life. Had, he corrected. Those luxuries ended the moment I kissed you. Welcome to the Benedetti family, Mrs. Benedetti. The Benedetti estate rose before us like something from a European postcard, all limestone facades and manicured gardens that screamed old money. Iron gates opened silently as we approached, revealing a circular driveway where a fountain dominated the center courtyard. Armed guards nodded respectfully as our car passed, their weapons barely concealed beneath tailored jackets. Welcome home, Mrs. Benedetti, Cairo said as the driver opened my door. I stepped onto polished marble, my heels echoing in the vast foyer. Crystal chandeliers hung from coffered ceilings 20 feet above, while oil paintings of stern-faced men in expensive suits lined the walls, generations of Benedetti patriarchs watching every move. A woman in her 50s approached, her silver hair pulled into an elegant chignon. Mr. Benedetti, your mother called. She wishes to meet. Later, Rosa. Cairo's hand pressed against my lower back, guiding me toward a sweeping staircase. Show Mrs. Benedetti to the East Wing. Everything she needs should be waiting. Of course, sir. I don't need anything, I said as we climbed the stairs. I need to go home. Cairo stopped at the landing, turning to face me. This is home. The sooner you accept that, the easier this transition will be. Transition? I laughed bitterly. You mean imprisonment. Protection, he corrected patiently. Marco has connections throughout the city. Your apartment, your job, your friends, all compromised. Here you're safe. The East Wing was a series of interconnected rooms that could have housed a small family. The bedroom alone was larger than my entire apartment, dominated by a 4-poster bed draped in silk. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking the gardens, but I could see guards patrolling the grounds below. Beautiful view, I said dryly. Rosa will bring you anything you need. Dinner is at 7. Cairo moved toward the door, then paused. Don't try to leave, Adana. The gates are locked, the grounds are monitored, and my men have orders to return you unharmed. Unharmed, I repeated. How reassuring. His smile held no warmth. I'm many things, but I'm not Marco. You'll come to understand the difference. The door closed with a soft click, followed by the unmistakable sound of a lock engaging. I spent the first hour exploring my luxurious prison. The walk-in closet was filled with designer clothes in my exact size. How had he known? The bathroom featured a marble-soaking tub and gold fixtures that probably cost more than most people's cars. Every comfort imaginable, Except freedom. The balcony doors were unlocked, but the drop to the gardens below was 20 feet. Even if I could make it without breaking my legs, the guards would spot me immediately. The windows faced the same problem: beautiful views, impossible escape routes. By evening, I tested every possible exit. The bedroom door remained locked. The balcony was a dead end. Even the adjoining sitting room offered no solutions. Its single door led back to the locked bedroom. At exactly 7 o'clock, Rosa appeared with a dinner tray. "Mr. Benedetti requests your presence in the dining room," she said politely. "Tell Mr. Benedetti I'm not hungry." He anticipated you might say that. Rosa set the tray on a side table. "He also said to inform you that meals are communal in this house. Family tradition." "I'm not family. You are now, Mrs. Benedetti." The dining room could have seated 20, but only 2 places were set at one end of the mahogany table. Cairo sat at the head, having changed from his suit into dark slacks and a white dress shirt open at the collar. He looked younger somehow, more approachable, though his eyes held the same calculating intelligence. "You're late," he said without looking up from his wine. "Traffic," I replied, taking the seat to his right. His lips twitched.
"Eat."
"Not hungry." "Eat anyway." This time his tone brooked no argument. I picked at the perfectly prepared salmon while Cairo watched me with predatory patience. The silence stretched until I couldn't stand it anymore. "How long do you plan to keep me here?" "That depends entirely on you." "Meaning?" "How quickly you adjust to your new circumstances." He cut his steak with surgical precision. "Fight me, and this becomes unpleasant for everyone. Accept the situation, and you might find it's not the prison you imagine." I set down my fork. "You kidnapped me." "I saved you," he corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because from where I'm sitting, I'm still trapped by a man I didn't choose." "But you did choose." Cairo's dark eyes met mine. "You got in the car. You could have run, screamed, called for help. Instead, you chose the protection I offered. Because the alternative was going back to Marco." "Exactly." His smile was sharp as a blade. "You made the smart choice. Now make another one. Adapt, or make this harder than it needs to be." I stared at him across the elegant table, hating how right he was. Every escape attempt had failed. Every door was locked. Every window monitored. I was as trapped here as I'd been with Marco, except the chains were made of silk instead of steel. "What do you want from me?" I asked quietly. "Compliance," he said simply. "Play the part of my wife in public. Accept my protection in private. In return, you'll want for nothing. Accept freedom." "Freedom is an illusion, Adana. The question is whether you prefer comfortable captivity or the alternative Marco offers." That night, I lay in the impossibly soft bed staring at the ceiling. Outside, guards patrolled the grounds with military precision. Inside, every luxury surrounded me: silk sheets, down pillows, climate control that kept the room at the perfect temperature. But when I tried the door at midnight, it was still locked. The next 3 days fell into a pattern. Rosa brought breakfast. I tested the boundaries of my gilded cage. Cairo appeared for dinner, watching me with those calculating eyes while making polite conversation about everything except my captivity. On the 4th day, I tried a different approach. "I need some air," I told Rosa when she brought lunch. "The balcony provides fresh air, Mrs. Benedetti." "I mean real air. A walk in the gardens." Rosa hesitated. "I'll need to ask Mr. Benedetti." "Then ask him." An hour later, Cairo appeared in my sitting room. "You want to walk?" "I want to leave this room." "The gardens are acceptable," he said after a moment. "With supervision." "Of course." "Try to run, and you'll lose even that privilege." I followed him downstairs and out into the afternoon sun. The gardens were even more beautiful up close. Carefully tended roses, sculpted hedges, fountains that provided soothing background noise. It would have been peaceful if not for the armed guard trailing 20 feet behind us. "Tell me about yourself," Cairo said as we walked a gravel path between flower beds. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. You're my wife now. I should know more than your name and your talent for choosing the wrong men." "Marco wasn't my choice," I said sharply. He was my father's business partner. The marriage was arranged.
Ah,
Something shifted in Cairo's expression. A transaction.
exactly.
And when my father died, I became Marco's property instead of his partner. I kicked at a loose stone. 3 years of that was enough. Yet you stayed. I was planning my escape. The degree was my ticket out. I looked back at the mansion looming behind us. Fat lot of good it did me. Cairo stopped beside a rose bush, plucking a red bloom and studying it with the same intensity. He focused on everything else. You're different than I expected. How so? Most women in your situation would be in hysterics by now. You're calculating, planning. His dark eyes met mine. I find that intriguing. If you're watching this thinking, I would have done the same thing. Subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna. Because the choice she's about to make will change 3 lives forever. That evening, as Chicago's skyline glittered beyond the mansion's windows, 3 black SUVs roared through the front gates. Men in masks poured out, assault rifles raised, heading straight for the main entrance. Get down, Cairo shouted, tackling me behind a marble pillar as the first shots shattered the dining room windows. The attack was swift, brutal, professional. Marco had brought a small army to reclaim what he considered his property, and the Benedetti guards were outnumbered 3-1. Stay here, Cairo ordered, drawing a gun from beneath his jacket. Where are you going? To end this. He moved with lethal grace through the mansion, coordinating his men's defense while hunting the intruders. I crouched behind the pillar, my heart hammering as gunfire echoed through rooms that had seemed so civilized an hour before. Then I saw the red, dancing across Cairo's chest as he moved through the foyer below. Cairo! I screamed, throwing myself over the banister. The sniper's bullet caught him in the shoulder instead of the heart as we both crashed to the marble floor. Blood seeped through his white shirt, spreading like spilled wine across expensive fabric. You little fool, he gasped, pressing his hand against the wound. I told you to stay hidden. You're welcome, I panted, helping him to his feet as his men finished mopping up the last of Marco's soldiers. For the first time since I'd met him, Cairo Benedetti looked at me without calculation, without that predatory assessment. Something warmer flickered in his dark eyes, surprise, maybe even respect. Why? He asked quietly. I didn't have an answer that made sense, so I gave him the truth instead. I don't know. The next morning, Cairo appeared at breakfast with his arm in a sling, moving stiffly but refusing any assistance. The dining room windows had been replaced overnight, but bullet holes still scarred the marble walls, permanent reminders of how close we'd come to death. You saved my life, he said without preamble, settling into his chair with careful precision. Don't read too much into it, I replied, cutting my eggs with unnecessary force. Anyone would have done the same. No, he said quietly, they wouldn't have. His tone had changed from the previous week's calculated authority to something softer, more uncertain. When Rosa refilled his coffee, he thanked her, something I'd never heard him do before. When his phone buzzed with business calls, he ignored them entirely, focusing his attention on me with uncomfortable intensity. You're staring, I said finally. You're different than I thought. So you keep saying. Most people in your situation would have let me die. Use the chaos to escape. Cairo's dark eyes studied my face. Why didn't you? The question had haunted me all night. I could have run during the attack, could have slipped away while his men were distracted. Instead, I'd thrown myself into the line of fire for a man who'd kidnapped me, claimed me, trapped me in this gilded cage. Maybe I'm stupider than you thought, I said. Or maybe you're exactly as smart as I suspected. His fingers drummed against the table. Which makes this interesting. What? This arrangement between us. I thought I understood the parameters, but you've changed them. I haven't changed anything. Haven't you? Cairo leaned back in his chair, studying me with renewed interest. Yesterday, you were my captive. Today, you're something else entirely. Heat rose in my cheeks. I'm still your prisoner. Are you? He gestured toward the open terrace doors. Walk outside. I hesitated, waiting for the catch. Just like that. Just like that. I stood slowly, expecting him to stop me, but he simply watched as I moved toward the doors. Sunlight warmed my face as I stepped onto the terrace, breathing deeply for what felt like the first time in a week. "The gates are still locked," I said without turning around. "Yes." "The guards are still watching." "Yes." "Then I'm still a prisoner." "But now you're a prisoner who chose to save her captor's life." Cairo's voice came from directly behind me, close enough that I could feel his body heat. "That changes things." I spun to face him, anger flaring in my chest. "It doesn't change anything. You still kidnapped me. You still claimed me like property. You still..." "Still what?" His voice was dangerously soft. "Still arrogant enough to think one moment of human decency means I've accepted this insane situation." "Then why did you do it?" "I don't know." The words exploded out of me, all the confusion and frustration of the past week finally finding voice. "I don't know why I saved you. I don't know why I didn't run. I don't know why I'm standing here arguing with you instead of plotting my next escape attempt." Something shifted in Cairo's expression, a crack in that perfectly controlled facade. "You want the truth?" "I don't know either. I don't know why I claimed you instead of just paying Marco to disappear. I don't know why I brought you here instead of stashing you in a safe house. And I sure as hell don't know why watching you risk your life for mine felt like a punch to the chest." We stared at each other in the morning sunlight, the space between us crackling with unspoken tension. This was dangerous territory, emotions neither of us knew how to navigate. "You'd have let me die," I said finally. "If the situation were reversed, would I?" Cairo moved closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "A week ago, I would have said yes. Now I'm not so sure." My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone. Have you ever felt that moment when everything you believed just shatters? Tell me in the comments, because right now, I need to know I'm not the only one who's been this afraid. The moment shattered when Rosa appeared in the doorway, her face pale with panic. "Mr. Benedetti," she said urgently. "Your men just called." Mrs. Benedetti's friend from the university, she's been asking questions, making calls. She contacted the police about a missing person report. "Handle it," Cairo said without taking his eyes off me. "There's more, sir. Marco's been seen in the area. Our sources think he's planning something." "What kind of something?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from the way Rosa's hands twisted together. "The kind that involves leverage," Cairo said grimly. "Rosa, double the perimeter guards. No one gets on or off this property without my approval." "Already done, sir. But there's something else." Rosa's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "One of the kitchen staff didn't show up this morning. Maria Santos. She's worked here for 3 years. Never missed a day." The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. In the silence that followed, I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. "When was she last seen?" Cairo demanded. "Yesterday evening, after dinner service. She said she was going home to her sister's place in Pilsen." "Check the sister. Check the apartment. Check." Rosa's phone buzzed. She answered with shaking hands, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up with a face gone white as bone. "Sir," she said quietly, "we found Maria's car abandoned 6 blocks from here. There was blood on the driver's seat and a note addressed to Mrs. Benedetti." Cairo's jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might crack. "What does it say?" "She belongs to me. Midnight. Navy Pier. Come alone or I start sending pieces." The world tilted sideways. Marco had Maria, sweet, quiet Maria who brought me extra coffee in the mornings and never asked questions about why I couldn't leave. Now she was going to die because of me, because I'd run from one monster straight into the arms of another. "It's a trap," Cairo said flatly. "Of course it's a trap. I was already moving toward the house. That doesn't matter." "Like hell it doesn't." His good hand caught my arm, spinning me around to face him. "You walk into that pier, and you're both dead. If I don't go, Maria dies tonight. If you do go, you both die tonight. Along with however many of my men I send to back you up." I jerked free of his grip. "Then don't send anyone. I'll go alone." "You'll go nowhere." The command in his voice was absolute, backed by all the authority of his position. I won't allow it. Allow it? I laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. You don't get to allow or disallow anything. Maria is in danger because of me. I'm going to save her. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe. But at least I'll die trying to save an innocent woman instead of hiding behind walls and armed guards. Cairo's eyes went black as midnight. You think I'm a coward? I think you're a man who's used to controlling everything and everyone around him. Well, you can't control this. Watch me. He turned toward the house, presumably to give orders that would ensure I never left the property. But 3 steps later, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. He glanced at the screen, and his face went pale. Marco, he said by way of explanation, then answered. You have something that belongs to me. Even from where I stood, I could hear Marco's laughter through the speaker. Actually, Benedetti, I think you have something that belongs to me. Shall we discuss an exchange? You want your little kitchen made back? Marco's voice crackled through the phone speaker, dripping with malicious satisfaction. Then bring me what's mine. Navy Pier, Warehouse 17, midnight. She comes alone, or I start cutting off fingers. Cairo's grip on the phone turned his knuckles white. Touch one hair on that woman's head and You'll what? Send your army? Try it. I've got snipers positioned on every rooftop within a mile radius. The moment I see Benedetti colors, the maid dies, and Adana disappears forever. The line went dead, leaving us standing in the sudden silence of the terrace. Cairo stared at the phone for a long moment, his jaw working as he calculated odds, angles, possibilities. I'm going, I said quietly. No. It's not your choice. Everything about this is my choice. He turned to face me, his dark eyes blazing with barely contained fury. You're under my protection. That means I decide what risks you take. Maria is under your protection too. Or doesn't that matter because she's just the help? The words hit their target. Something flickered across Cairo's face, guilt, maybe even shame. Maria had worked for his family for 3 years, trusted them, served them loyally. Now she was going to die because of their war. This is what Marco wanted all along, Cairo said finally. To draw you out, to force my hand. Then he succeeded. I moved toward the house. I need to get ready. Where do you think you're going? To save someone who doesn't deserve to die for your family's mistakes. Cairo caught up to me in 3 strides, his good hand gripping my shoulder hard enough to leave bruises. You walk into that warehouse and you're both dead. Marco doesn't trade. He takes. Then what do you suggest? Let Maria die while we sit here planning the perfect strategy that doesn't exist. I go instead. Tell Marco I'm willing to trade myself for both of you. I stared at him in genuine shock. You do that? I'd consider it. Consider it? I shook off his grip. While you're considering, Maria is tied up in some warehouse wondering why no one's coming for her. Adana. No. I spun to face him fully. You made this about power and possession and family honor. But Maria isn't part of your world. She's innocent. And if you won't save her, I will. Something shifted in Cairo's expression, a crack in the armor that revealed the man underneath. You think I don't care what happens to her? I think you care more about winning than saving lives. You're wrong. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute truth. I care about keeping you alive. Everything else is secondary. The admission hung between us like a live wire, dangerous and electric. This wasn't about mafia law or public claims or family honor. This was about something neither of us was ready to acknowledge. Why? I whispered. Because. Cairo stopped, his jaw clenching as he fought some internal battle. Because you think I trapped you, but it's me who's chained. The words hit me like a physical blow. All this time, I'd been so focused on my own captivity that I'd missed the bars around his cage. The expectations, the responsibilities, the endless weight of family legacy and criminal empire. Cairo. I've never had a choice, he continued, his voice raw with years of suppressed frustration. Not about this life, not about who I became, not about the blood on my hands.
But you chose to save me.
Not because you had to, not because of some code or family law. You chose. And you think that makes us even? I think it makes us something I don't know how to handle. Before I could respond, he was moving toward the house with renewed purpose. Rosa, get me everything we have on Warehouse 17. Blueprints, security footage, patrol schedules, everything. Sir? Rosa appeared in the doorway, her face still pale from the morning's revelations. Marco has Maria. We're getting her back. Together, I added firmly. Cairo's eyes met mine across the terrace. For a moment, I thought he'd argue, reassert his control, lock me away for my own protection. Instead, he nodded once, sharp and decisive. Together. The rescue plan was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its risks. Cairo would enter through the main warehouse entrance, drawing Marco's attention and most of his firepower. I would slip in through a drainage tunnel that connected to the building's sub-basement, locate Maria, and extract her through the same route. It's suicide, I said as we reviewed the blueprints in his study. It's the only option that doesn't get you both killed outright. Cairo traced the tunnel route with his finger. Marco expects me to come in guns blazing or not at all. He won't be watching the drainage system. What about you? You'll be outnumbered 20-1. I've survived worse odds. Have you? His smile was grim. We're about to find out. At 11:30, we drove through the empty streets of Chicago in separate cars. Cairo's sedan headed for the main warehouse district, while I took a circuitous route to the drainage access point half the mile south. The city felt different at night, darker, more dangerous, full of shadows that could hide killers or salvation. The drainage tunnel was exactly as disgusting as expected. Knee-deep water that smelled of decades of urban runoff, walls slick with substances I didn't want to identify, and a darkness so complete that my flashlight seemed to barely penetrate it. But it led where Cairo promised it would, directly into the sub-basement of Warehouse 17. I could hear voices above, multiple men speaking in low, urgent tones. Marco's voice rose above the others, giving orders, positioning his people for Cairo's arrival. According to our timeline, I had maybe 10 minutes to find Maria before the shooting started. The basement was a maze of storage rooms and mechanical equipment. I moved as quietly as possible, checking each space for any sign of Maria. Empty, empty, empty. Then I heard it, a soft whimper from behind a door marked electrical. Maria was tied to a chair in the corner, a gag covering her mouth and terror stark in her brown eyes. She was alive, conscious, and apparently unharmed. It's okay, I whispered as I cut her bonds with a knife Cairo had given me. I'm getting you out of here. She nodded frantically, tears streaming down her cheeks. Above us, the warehouse erupted in gunfire as Cairo made his entrance. Getting back to the tunnel should have been simple. Retrace our steps, move quickly but carefully, exit through the same route. But as we reached the basement stairs, Marco's voice echoed from directly above. Find her. She's here somewhere. Tear this place apart. Heavy footsteps thundered across the floor above, accompanied by shouted orders and the sounds of systematic searching. They'd realized I was in the building. This way, I whispered to Maria, pulling her toward the tunnel entrance. We were 20 feet from safety when the basement door burst open and 3 men poured down the stairs, flashlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights. There, I shoved Maria toward the tunnel. Go. Get out. But it was too late. Marco appeared at the top of the stairs, his face twisted with rage and triumph. Going somewhere, Mrs. Benedetti? The gunfire above had stopped, an ominous silence that could mean Cairo was dead, captured, or simply biding his time. Either way, we were trapped. Let Maria go, I said, stepping between her and Marco's men. Your fight is with me. My fight is with everyone who thought they could steal what's mine. Marco descended the stairs with predatory grace. But you're right about one thing. You're the prize. Adana. Cairo's voice came from behind Marco, quiet and deadly calm. Get down. I hit the floor as gunfire erupted again, this time at close quarters in the confined space of the basement. When the smoke cleared, Marco's 3 men were down, and Marco himself was pressed against the wall with Cairo's gun at his throat. "You always were too arrogant for your own good," Cairo said conversationally, blood seeping through his shirt from what looked like a fresh bullet wound. "This isn't over," Marco snarled. "Yes," Cairo said quietly, "it is." The shot echoed through the basement like thunder. Marco crumpled to the floor, his eyes staring sightlessly at the ceiling. "Are you okay?" Cairo asked, turning to me with concern etched across his features. "I'm fine. Maria's fine." I looked at the spreading blood on his shirt. "You're not. I've had worse." But his face was pale, and he swayed slightly on his feet. I moved to his side, letting him lean against me as we made our way out of the warehouse. "You came for us." "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I wasn't sure. This morning, maybe. But not now." What changed? I thought about his words on the terrace, about choices and chains and the weight of expectations neither of us had asked for. "Everything," I said simply. Back at the estate, I cleaned and bandaged Cairo's wound while he sat on the edge of his bed, watching me work with quiet intensity. "You should have let the doctor do this," I said as I secured the gauze. "I wanted it to be you." "Why?" "Because you're the only person who's ever touched me without wanting something in return." I stilled, my hands resting against his chest. "Cairo, I know this isn't normal. I know it's not what you wanted. But somewhere between saving your life and you saving mine, this became real for me." "What became real?" "This. Us. Whatever we are." I looked into his dark eyes and saw none of the calculation or predatory assessment that had defined our relationship from the beginning. Just a man who'd been shaped by violence and expectation into something he'd never chosen to become, looking at me like I held the key to a different kind of life. "Maybe I don't want to run anymore," I whispered. Meaning maybe I want to find out what we could be, if we both chose this freely." Cairo's hand cupped my face with infinite gentleness. "Are you sure?"
No.
"But I'm willing to try." When he kissed me this time, it wasn't claiming or possessive or designed to mark territory. It was soft, questioning, an invitation rather than a demand. I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his shirt, feeling something long frozen in my chest finally begin to thaw. For the first time since my graduation day, I felt safe. The feeling lasted exactly 6 hours. I woke to the sound of Cairo's phone buzzing on the nightstand. He answered with a sleep-rough voice, listened for 30 seconds, then sat up so quickly I thought he'd reopened his wound. "When?" he demanded. The voice on the other end was too quiet for me to make out words, but I could hear the urgency in its tone. "Double the perimeter. No one gets within a mile of this place without clearance." Cairo ended the call and turned to me, his face grave. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind that involves Marco's business partners deciding to avenge his death. Apparently, killing him didn't end our troubles, it multiplied them." My blood went cold. "How many are we talking about?" 3 families. Maybe 4. All of them with more resources and less mercy than Marco ever had. "So, what do we do?" Cairo's smile was sharp as a blade, but his eyes held a warmth that hadn't been there a week ago. "We fight. Together." "Together," I agreed. But as I watched him make call after call, mobilizing his forces for what promised to be the war of his life, I couldn't shake the feeling that our happily ever after was going to have to wait.